Welcome back to my YouTube channel at Honest Scholars. Today I'll be building on what I've discussed with you in my previous video, which centers around some of the reasons why you get low grades or why you get rejection or failure in your academic work. A lot of times as natural human beings, we want to take glory in our successes, but externalize our failures, such that when we get success, when we record high grades, we say, oh, I have put in a lot of work, I have done a lot of research, I read a lot and I got the good mark, oh, thanks to my hard work. But what happens when we fail or we get low grades? Oh, the supervisor doesn't like me, oh, they hate me, he's a naughty man, that's not his area of specialization. I don't know why they even chose him for me in the first place. I would have preferred another lecturer. I would have preferred another supervisor. Because this man, he likes to fail students. Oh, this woman does not like students. And that's what we do. We outsource our responsibilities. We outsource our failures to the external person. It's a natural thing in almost every human being. But if I put it to you that there are things you need to do, and one is to go beyond the natural. When you're operating in an academic world, go beyond your natural self and begin to apply the principles. Remember, we talked about the institutional principles, faculty principles, the principle from the department, the supervisor's requirements. All of these things are very, very critical when you are doing your research. The number one thing is that you must be a researcher who has a humble heart, a humble spirit, who wants to learn. Understanding that the supervisor is not an island who knows all. Also realizing your own weak points. So that's why they call supervision. Woo! So supervising means is collaborating with you to achieve success. So the supervisor is not an enemy. It's not witch hunting. The supervisor is not after giving you low grades. There are standards the supervisor is following. In a very serious academic environment, there are standards. And the supervisor won't compromise the standard because of your ego or because you don't have that humility to say, no, there are perspectives I do not know that the supervisor knows. There are points of view, there are theories I do not know that the supervisor knows. There are limits to what I know. And that is why we say that wherever your knowledge ends, it's where somebody else starts. So that is the first thing you have to acknowledge, that it is a collaborative work. It is not a work that you are asked to do alone. That is why you have a supervisor to guide, to instruct, to direct, to suggest. And those are the responsibilities of a supervisor. And that's what most supervisors do. So when you take up that work, the first thing you have to do is to read and read and read. Every school of thought, every scholar you have consulted, ensure that you have the background philosophical orientations from which they speak. Every scholar you come across in your reading has a philosophical background, has a theoretical basis upon which they write or they speak or they conclude. And that is one thing you have to understand. And that perspective may not align with your perspective, may not align with the supervisor's perspective. So at that point, you want to look at areas where you can synergize, areas where all of these ideas can be, you can conflate these ideas, you can converge them and begin to look at similarities. You're looking at convergence. And that is very important. So your supervisor has said, do you think structural realism will work with the theory you're proposing? Why not let's look at nuclear realism? So if you have done your background research, you've read well enough, you will come to a conclusion to explain why you are taking structural realism, for example, as your theoretical basis. So in explaining that, you have to be humble enough in explaining. You are not superimposing your ideas on your supervisor. You are explaining to your supervisor and making him or her understand why you are operating within that theoretical framework. So that's very important. The second thing has to do with working on the feedback. The supervisor has said this, I said this, I said these areas need to be reworked, these areas need more clarification. So how do you provide those clarifications? You don't want to discard what your supervisor has said. Do not discard every line, every correction, every observation that your supervisor has made. Work on each of them. Do not discard them. Because again, like I said, there are perspectives you do not know that the supervisor knows well. Because he's been on the field for years. So you want to ensure that you cooperate as much as possible without compromising standard. And there is no supervisor, no lecturer that will compromise standard. As far as I know, especially in a very serious academic environment. So ensure that you cooperate with your supervisor. Work on the feedback given to you. Work on the areas that you need to work on. That's why I speak about having a reviewer, having a third eye, having a fourth eye, having a fifth eye that will look at your work. When they cross-examine your work, it becomes very easy for you to say, look, I think these areas need to be reviewed. I think this area need to be touched again. I think this area need to be examined again. And that's when you come back again and sit down and look at it again critically and okay, I think my supervisor, I did not notice this part that where I spoke about what he has observed. So I think I need to explain to him further, or I need to explain to her further. And that's where interaction comes in. That's where you have to have constant engagement. And that's one of the troubles that students make, researchers make. They do not want to have constant engagement. You go blank for several weeks without communicating, without interacting, without getting on the feedback as soon as possible. So you don't want to make that mistakes all over again. Ensure that you are giving constant feedback, you are communicating, you are interacting with your supervisor, whether it is virtual, via email, or physical meetings you are having. Ensure that there is a constant feedback from you. So every feedback that your professor has given to you, work on them, and again, promptly give feedback so that when you are giving this feedback, it energizes the supervisor that you are serious about what you are doing, and not just go blank and never communicate and never talk to them until you have to come back to them again. It affected somebody like me. So you don't want to go into that issue again. Ensure that there is that constant communication. There's that constant communication at every point in time. I've spoken to you about having a humble heart, ensuring that you don't know all and your supervisor does not know all. I've spoken to you about that academic work is collaborative work. That's why you have a supervisor. I've talked to you about having constant working on the feedback from your supervisor, ensuring that you don't discard any line. Even if it's a dot, ensure that that dot is effected, the correction is effected in your work. Then the last thing that I've spoken about is constantly engaging your supervisor. Explaining your point of view, explaining your theory. If the theory does not align with what your supervisor wants, why not try to amend? But again, ensure that you explain in simple terms, with clarity of mind, with clarity of thought, with clarity of philosophy, with clarity of theory, and the basis upon which you are operating. If you make this clarification, as smooth as possible to your supervisor, you're going to have it smooth running, and it's going to be a seamless process, such that at the end of the day, you won't have to be grappling with low grades or rejection, or you have issues with your supervisor, or you have issues with your institutions or your faculty, and a host of other things. All of these things are very important that you take cognizance of them, you work on them, and ensure that that collaboration is what you're working with. You're not an island. Remember, academic work, the first point of reference is your supervisor when marking is to be done, when evaluation or assessment is to be done. The first person the school will contact, the faculty will contact, your department will contact is the supervisor. And the attitude you show to your supervisor may make or mar your academic work. Be careful, be guided. I hope you find this video very helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click and turn on the notification button, and I'll see you next time.